We go to former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. Now, Russia's Ministry of Defense says the Syrian chemical attack was staged by Britain. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you have to look to motive, and I think that this is. It certainly wasn't with the Syrian government, because they had just worked out an arrangement with the Jaish al-Islam, which, by the way, has a capability of chlorine gas attacks, and they've even said so in previous statements. They performed this act in Aleppo recently, so that they were negotiating to remove the Jaish al-Islam, some of the remaining fighters, out of East Ghouta, and so there was no motive on the part of the Syrians to do this. And it certainly wasn't the Russians. So I think you have to look at motive, and I know the foreign ministry said Great Britain, but I think you have to look closer in the neighborhood.
All right, I want to get to, on Thursday, there were unnamed U.S. officials who spoke to NBC News. They said they had obtained blood and urine samples from some of the victims, which tested positive for chlorine and a nerve agent. Now, U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley says we definitely have enough proof, but now we just have to be thoughtful in our action. So, Michael, if this is proof, how do you think the UN will respond to this chemical attack?
Well, proof of what? That there was a chemical attack? That's one thing, but are they going to be able to determine who actually instigated it? That's yet another question, and that is not what they've determined just yet with any proof. And I think that's why you're seeing Secretary of Defense Mattis urging caution, because they don't have the intelligence. The intelligence is not there. And I think that this is why you're seeing some hesitation on the part of the U.S. in going full bore to launch attacks.
And right now, as you said, there hasn't been any evidence brought forth to show who is actually responsible for this attack.
Correct.
But we do have the U.S. President Trump. He's blaming the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and he's saying that he is a gas-killing animal. Now, for a couple days now, the U.S. military, it's been moving more military gear to the offshores of Syria. But how soon do you think Trump will move on his threat of attacking Syria?
If he is to do anything, it could happen almost any time. I mean, the U.S. has an international capability from launching missiles off of submarines that don't even have to be in the immediate area. There is a task force that's moving in right now. They want it in place. Whether or not they'll attack is problematic. I would think that, given the caution and the problem as well of the slippery slope of just even a limited attack, what it could mean. If Russian personnel, for example, are attacked, this could easily escalate into a full-bore conflagration. And I think that this is why people who like regime change so much have got to be very, very careful in what they're saying. I remember Iraq in 2003 and WMD, the intelligence was extremely faulty, and we're still suffering the consequence of that today.
Speaking of escalation, Defense Secretary James Mattis, he says Trump does risk escalating U.S. involvement in Syria, and experts even go further, and they warn that this could pull the U.S. into direct conflict with Russia and Iran. So if Trump does move forward with this threat, what would that look like?
It would be catastrophic. And not to mention the fact that our capabilities of getting everyday necessities, it will affect the world, because your oil, everything is governed through that region, that whole area, that whole region would be shut down. And not to mention the fact that you would have thousands of people killed. And the question then is, for what? And is the result worth what occurred on the ground? You got to look at the larger picture. This easily could lead to World War III.
Now we're a little short on time here, but in your opinion, what do you think is the best course of action that the U.S. could be taking at this moment?
I think the United States needs to talk very carefully and closely with the Russians, maybe even have U.S. personnel on the team to go on in to East Ghouta. This is a very serious thing. Even Stephen Cohen, who's a renowned expert on Russia, says this is even worse than the time leading up to the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is very serious on what's occurring right now, and the next move has got to be very calculated and very purposeful. And I think you need to be talking with people and working with folks on the ground. As I said, I don't see that the Syrian government had any motive in this at this point.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much for your insight. That was former Pentagon official Michael Moliv. Thank you so much.
Thank you.